Hey guys, this is Zargi from Zargi Studios and the Game Maker University. What is up? Now, I have been away for quite a while, but I think I'm about ready to start making tutorials again for Game Maker. Now, this one is a bit of a concept tutorial more than an actual usability tutorial. Yeah, this is something, a concept or a design principle, or rather, not a design principle, a feature really, that you can use in one of your games, but it's not something that you will use in every game. It is something that I will tell you that is useful in very large games. So I have an example over on the other screen that I'm going to start up real quick. This is called script slotting. And this example might not show exactly how powerful this feature is right now, but when we do more tutorials on this in the future, which I will do depending on how this one turns out, then yes, it's a very powerful feature, particularly in larger games. So we just have a ball on the screen right now, and we can move them around with the arrow keys. Pretty simple, pretty basic actually. I should mention that this tutorial does require Game Maker Studio because the technique that we use in it, the specific feature of GML that we use, I believe is only in GM Studio, unfortunately. I saw online that you cannot do this with GM8, but if you get it working in GM8, do tell me, because I'm not really using it anymore. So anyway, we have this ball on the screen. Now he's moving around. Now, the interesting thing is, if we press the space bar, he goes a bit larger, you see that? And then if we click anywhere on the screen, he moves around following the mouse cursor. And we cannot move him using the arrow keys. But if we press space again, then we can move him using the arrow keys, and clicking does nothing. Now, this of course is a very simple behavior, and you could do it just by having literally a switch that in the step event that switched whenever the space bar triggered, and then you basically drive the behavior off of that. You have an if-else if system. But what I'm going to show you today is script slotting, and this feature I will tell you is again is very useful in larger games, particularly with state machines and AI. But that's something for a future tutorial, of course. So what I'm going to do right now, I have this empty project open right here. I'm going to save it real quick. And we're going to create this using the script slots method, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So over here, one thing that I want to show you real quick, a feature of GM Studio that you might not know, is I have my other project open over here. If I grab a resource, well, no, actually, that's not how you do it. What you want to do, if I can get this to drag, what you want to do is go over here, right-click a resource in GM Studio, and that is not working. I clicked External Editor, excuse me. Open an Explorer, and this will open where the file is in Windows Explorer. So you can actually see. So this is not the actual image file. This is the sprite data file, or the GMX file, which is actually just a definition of the sprite. If you go to images, the actual sprite is in there. But what you're going to want to do is take this and drag it onto this empty window here, is what I'm doing. So that's an easy way to move resources between projects. And if you see here in this GMX folder, this is actually the project directory, and it has all of your resources in it. So you could even easily drag all these resources in there, and that's what I'm going to be doing throughout this tutorial instead of just writing all the scripts. So we have our player sprite here, just a ball, of course. It's centered, but that doesn't really matter either way. So what next? Well, first I'd like to explain about resource numbers because it's going to factor into what we're doing. Or resource IDs would probably be a better term. Basically, each resource in GM is assigned a number, which is its ID. Since this is the first sprite that's been created, or maybe it's not the first, You could conceivably go to, actually no. If you type this out, let's just open a script. So if you type this out, equals player sprite. So just in a hypothetical situation, A would not equal the name player sprite. It would equal the resource ID that player sprite holds. So it's, in this case, it's probably 0, but it could be something else. In fact, let's just test this real quick. Let's show a debug message in the GameMaker console real quick and just show A right there. And it'll probably be a number. So let's test that out. We want to test quick tip here. If you want to test out just a simple script, just create a room, go to settings, creation code, script 0 is the name of it. And type it like that, then do that, show compile form, and run. And hopefully, to drive the point home, this will give out the resource ID number, which is what we're going to be using in our script system. And if you see right here, if you scroll back up here, this 0 is that. So this 0 right here, the name in the GM engine, the name player sprite is essentially 0. It's exactly like a constant. So if I did var a equals 0, that would be the same thing. And more importantly, when you're using the draw function, draw sprite, for instance, 0, 0, 0. For instance, if you put a 0 here, it would actually draw in the slot for sprite. It would actually draw the player sprite because 0 equals player sprite in the engine, and this is actually something pretty useful to us. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete. Make sure to stop the game first, then delete this script. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's get started. So we're just going to create our player object, and in the add the create event and go to the creation code. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to create a slot, what I call a script slot. And what we're going to do is type movement slot equals 0. Or rather equals -1. And what this is this is just a variable that is going to hold a script name. And to do this, I'm going to actually import a couple of the scripts from here. Let's go ahead and import all these. And these are just a few scripts. Move use, I'll just go through them real quick. Move using keyboard, of course, moves the object using the keyboard. Move using mouse, moves using the mouse. Player draw larger and player draw normal. Those are pretty self-explanatory too. They'll be included in the example to download, but they're not too complicated. So what do we have here? Well, we have a movement slot, a variable. And remember when I said each resource is assigned an ID, well, all of these scripts have IDs. And the interesting thing, and I think this is only in Studio, in GM Studio for some reason, it got added recently. The interesting thing is we can type move using keyboard. And notice here, very important point, and let me actually scale this up so you can see it better. Move using keyboard. Notice we are not putting the parentheses here. We are not executing the function by doing this. We're not executing the script, rather. So when you put parentheses, you're essentially telling it to execute it. But if you leave the parentheses off, that means that movement slot will now equal the resource ID of the script. So the other thing that's very useful, if we go into the step event, I'm getting saliva in my mouth. It's kind of annoying. If we go into the step event, we have a very neat function called script execute. And this is how all of this works. This is tied to this script. This is tied to this function. So you just simply put in, for instance, if we put move using keyboard in here, just the name, then that would execute that script. And you also have options for arguments in script execute, but we're not going to do that right now. So we have our player object. Let's assign the player sprite to it and put it in our room. Now we should just be able to move around with the keyboard controls. And okay, always remember to take out any references to scripts that don't work. Again, this one type of game I would really suggest using this system on is some kind of action RPG or something with a really large, expansive world with objects interacting with each other a lot. So yeah, we're moving around, just hanging around, just rolling around, and that. And we're executing the move using keyboard. Well, what we can do is, if you remember, we have our movement slot up here and our script execute over here. We can just type essentially the same thing as movement slot, and it will do the exact same thing. Let me show you right now. Wait for it to compile. If there's one complaint I do have, it's that compiling is not multi-core. And as you can see, we are moving around. Now, what this means is that we also have this move using mouse. This means, since movement slot is a variable, we can change it at any time. And since this executes whatever movement slot is, we can change the script that executes here anytime we want to, dynamically. So, for example, I'll just copy this out of here, out of the player object in my example code. And add a parentheses there. And this is just a little switching thing. It's pretty it's pretty large with not much to do. But it works all right. For our demonstration. So now, if we start the game up, we can move around with the keyboard, but if we press space, we can move around with the mouse. And what this would be very useful for is, for example, if you have a game with both keyboard and mouse and gamepad support, and you wanted to switch between the gamepad and the keyboard and mouse, all you would have to, in the player object, all you would have to do is go into the player object and have it so it switches between move input using keyboard and input using gamepad. And this is extremely powerful, especially when you have, a bunch of parents for objects. Another thing, we can also create as many of these slots as we want. So the next slot we're going to make is a draw slot. And then we're going to set it to player draw normal. And what we're also going to do is add a draw event. And if you notice, one thing that we're also going to do real quickly before we do that is we're going to add a check here. If if script exists. Because if we accidentally set a script to to a script that doesn't exist, then it's going to be pretty bad. I mean, you'll get an error essentially, and the game will exit out. So we just want to have a little check there for safety. And in fact, what we're also going to do real quick, get rid of that, is let's create a little function. Let's put all of this inside of a function and call it script. I cannot type. It is late tonight, but I wanted to get this out anyway. Script slot execute. And this will take the argument 0 instead of just this slot, and this means that it'll check against the slot. And if we also want to put anything else in this script, we can, and it won't impact. We won't have to go through all of our objects changing all of these every time. One more very cool newer GM Studio feature is if you put 3 parentheses, then type out the script name, then do parentheses. For instance, let's put slot. Click OK. Reopen that. And then if we go to script slot execute, we can see right here in the autocomplete, it actually has the argument here. So again, you put a 3 slash comment here, and then the name of the slot, or the name of the script, and then the arguments within the parentheses, separated by commas if you have them like that. And then that works that is a good feature, honestly. So let's just set this to movement slot, and let's go ahead and copy this. We go to the draw event and set it to draw slot. And what we're also going to do now, because we want to be able to see what state the player is in real quickly, what we can also do is, I'm going to go ahead and reformat this real quick. Okay. And this will change out the draw slot as well. So we can move around. Then if we were drawn bigger, now we move towards the mouse. Now we're drawn smaller again. So an important thing to note is you can have as many of these scripts for the different slots as you want, and you can have as many slots as you want. When you get into things like state machines, you can have... what I'm doing now with a project that I'm working on is for each state that the object has, I have a set of script slots that I push stuff into, that I push slot scripts into. And let me show you, let's see, what else? Real quick, open the constants, and let's make a constant, call it script none. And this is just going to be a constant that's for when we want to specify that there is no script that we want to execute. And also, let's make it -1. Because I told you about the resource IDs. Resource IDs go 1 and up. So if it's -1, that will never be a resource ID. So if we go in here and like that... so for instance, if instead of player draw larger, we put it at script none. And what this will do instead is not draw the object. Because the draw event, of course, if you have anything in the draw event, it doesn't do it automatically. So if we press space, can't see anything. Press space again. Okay, so that's pretty simple. One other thing, organizing scripts into groups. I suggest creating a group for each type of object, and then creating another group by right-clicking on the folder and selecting Create a Group, and we're doing this for movement. And just drag those scripts in there. And one for drawing. And drag those in there. And it is important in larger projects to keep things organized. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. The last thing I'm going to show you is how this actually helps you, for instance, when creating parents. So let's duplicate this player object, and let's parent it to the player object, and let's call it player lesser object. So we're going to actually delete the step and draw events, and just have the create event, and actually delete that. Go to the control tab and add call event inherited, which will call the event, of course, in the parent. That means that in this object it will call this script. So what we're now going to want to do, actually, what we should do here is, well, okay, let's see, what was I going to do? Okay, so instead of any of these, we're going to want to actually duplicate. Let's duplicate this guy. Actually, no, duplicate the other one. And as you can see here, if you create a resource, it has the resource ID on it, sort of. So that's the 7th script, and the ID is probably going to be the 7. Duplicate that one. And we're going to set the image, let's see, let's set the image blend to C red, which will give it a red color. And let's see, player draw red, name it. And the beauty of this is, in this lesser player object, we can just say in the create event, after the inherited event, draw slot equals player draw normal. Remember not to put the parentheses. And this means that we will not have to do anything in the step event of any of this at all, or the draw event. We don't even have to add them on. They will be handled by the parent itself because it has this script execute up here. And this is the real beauty of it. If you have a tree with like several parent-child relationships in a long chain, then you pretty much want to do this because stuff can get seriously complicated, trust me. But anyway, let's save that object and then go and add it to this room here, just beside that. And I think I got this right. It is late. And I got it wrong. Where did I, let's see, did I put it in the wrong one? Okay, yeah, I put in player draw normal. Player draw red. There we go. Yeah, I do plan to make more of these. I kind of let the channels pretty much stagnate. That's weird, it's black. I'm not sure why. But as we can see, this is the parent and this is the child, and they have the same behavior. If we press space, that's that's weird. Not sure why it's doing that. Oh well, but you get the point. of course, I do plan on expanding this into a series of tutorials. But let me just go over what we've done real quick. We've created a player object that has behavior. We've created 2 slots, and we have added the ability to swap these slots to different scripts at runtime dynamically whenever we want. And next time, I'm going to go over some pretty cool AI stuff, which will help with AI immensely. So yeah, it's very late, and thank you very much for watching this. If you sat through this for this long, there will be an example in the description. It might not seem I might have messed up and not make it seem exactly how good it really is, but trust me, it is good. So this has been Zargi with GM University. If you like this tutorial, do subscribe for more, of course. And thank you very much for watching.